a leader's job is to show people the path and show them that there's something next to strive for, so they feel like they're achieving. And that's what I've always seen to be true, no matter what the industry is. It's really about the lived core values, not just what you put on a plaque. And that's where I say, like, it means something when it's your North Star. When it's this is the buffer, the boundary of, oh, we start to make a choice that veers out. Oh, it pushes us back in. Like, are we getting out of alignment with those things? So if you're self-aware enough to see if you're living in alignment with the words you put on the wall to be core values, or make those core values based off of just genuinely what you're already doing. If you just work on building the value that you have to offer, like work on yourself first and work on what you have to offer, and the right people will come. So defining like what success means to you is crucial first step in understanding who you need to start to bring in to support you.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Welcome, Digital Trailblazers. With us today is Ryann Halo. She is an expert on team building for small businesses. So we're going to get into all the nitty gritty and how to really build up your business in the right way with the right people so that you're not shooting yourself in the foot and making some bad choices that will hinder things down the road, but really help you expand and grow to your ultimate goals. So welcome to the show, Ryann.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So how did you get started with this sort of specialty in growth and small businesses? Where did this begin for you?
Yeah. So I actually never intended on going in this direction. I found myself kind of on my own and in a position of assisting in a hair salon at 15 years old, when I had always believed that my path to success would be very traditional, going to the best college possible. And there were some tragedies in my family that kind of led to this unexpected course of mine. And from there, I just decided that I was going to give my all to whatever I did, and discovered that I had passions for things like building people and being an educator that I would not have previously thought.
That's awesome. So you've built your own personal team, and now you're moving to consulting, correct?
Yes. So the story of building the company is kind of a long one, maybe not the time, but I found myself owning my first physical brick and mortar hair salon at 21. And whereas I had looked at doing hair as kind of a not that serious job, or like I wouldn't be respected as a professional or even an intellectual, I was able to just like abandon that and throw myself into all the data and analytics that would make it a top salon, that would make it stand out, make it profitable, and give me the life that I felt I was meant to live. So when I put my ego aside and took hairdressing as the path I was meant to start on, then that led me to my passion for understanding consumer behavior, team dynamic, and how to just get great results from a team. Because at the beginning of starting the salon, it was like, okay, well, I'm great at doing hair and people love me. So I have the best ideas, and my name, it's I'm the boss here at 21. It's easy. I have all the pieces. And I quickly start to realize that no matter what industry it is, people are still people, whether it's a consumer or it's the dynamic of a team, the motivators, how to empower people at what they're the best at, and then fill in the gaps in the areas that they're not. So first I had to look at like, where are my gaps? What am I missing? It was communication skills. It was a lot of things at 21 with a 10th grade education. So I started to throw myself into both personal development, but also professional development in the way of understanding metrics that would help me see if my business was successful outside of just, oh, people love us and we're booked a lot.
Gotcha. Absolutely. So I think one thing that a lot of folks in our audience, so just there are a lot of solopreneurs or people who are just starting to build up their teams now. So how do you make hires that keep the culture? I think that's a really, really important thing and might not seem important when you're just, I just need help. But down the road, it's going to kick you in the butt if you get this wrong.
Well, I mean, I think for one, I would be remiss to not mention the partnership aspect of things. So partnerships and partnership agreements might be your first technical like hire and, co-employee. So that is like a little bit of a different direction to go in, but I would really like to mention that, it's important to apply what I'm about to go into to partnerships as well as employee hires. So for me and my coaching methodology now, the step one, phase one is all about creating the vision with clarity. So that includes a few different categories you need to go into. But first, having your mission statement. Second, having your values. So really clearly defining what is important to you. And it sounds a little fluffy to say, oh, mission statement, core values. I mean, at least I thought it sounded fluffy at one time. But what it comes down to is it's really just your North Star when you are making decisions, and especially personnel decisions. So whereas I value growth, education, and communication, if I were to hire somebody who wanted comfort, did not want to maybe cross boundaries with communication, wanted consistency, like we wouldn't be a good fit. They'd be a great fit for someone, but just not for us. And I didn't know what I didn't know when I started. And I skipped a lot of this stuff. And I had to go back to start to create it because you can't build a strong, building on a weak foundation. So yeah, I think creating clarity around the vision of who you want, what you want to see in these people. Everybody wants to work together toward a shared goal because inevitably, like it's so easy to get shiny new thing like, oh, there's this amazing service provider or technician that can bring all this exciting opportunity to our business. Maybe for me, it would be like if they had a bunch of clients. For you, it might be they have an amazing skill set they can bring in. But if they're not aligned values-wise and culture-wise, it will bite you in the butt.
Without naming names. But do you have any horror stories of culture discord, if you will, with hires?
Yeah, well, I mean, the most impactful story is actually the first thing I touched on, which was the partnership agreement. My partner was my grandma, and we were really close, and we both had the best intentions, and still took for granted that we wanted to take the company in the same direction. So I put in 10,000, she put in 10,000. That's how we started the business. I was a hairstylist. She was a stay-at-home mom who was legally blind. But she knew a little bit of bookkeeping from my grandpa's business. And so I just took for granted all these things that we didn't discuss. And like, I wanted to grow the company. She wanted to take profits as quickly as possible. And our team members felt very conflicted when she would come in and say things that were contrary to what I was saying. So again, not having alignment caused huge friction for the early team members that we had when it was just 3 to 5 people. And ultimately I did have to, buy her out. And it's hard and it's sad especially when it's people you're close, that's almost harder.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a specific process that you advise when it comes to the hiring someone who is a good culture fit?
Yes. So we've revised our hiring process many times over the 13 years we've been established. In the beginning, it was just me getting a feel for people and going to schools and speaking and seeing whoever I resonated with, my message resonated with, and then they'd come and they'd hang out with us for the day, and then we'd either move forward or not. And again, I was hiring out of desperation more back then than inspiration. So if you have the gift of being thoughtful in your hiring process, I like an in-person interview or working kind of, we call it play dates, but I'd like some type of activity where we see what the synergies like to work together. Just even applying, I use a software called Career Plug that gives me the opportunity to, from anywhere from 1 to 100 questions they fill out before they even are to submit an application. So I actually asked 50 questions up front because I have a pretty extensive process and a lot of systems and expectations of team. So just the fact that they're willing to take their time and fill out those questions, that tells me something. Then it has a lot of automated, scorekeeping where it can tell me how they're rating and what our expectations. There's a math test for people that are doing administrative math and verbal tests, and people that are not administrative and are hands-on service providers. It's more emotional intelligence assessments. So, I mean, there's assessments. There's just, are they willing to show up? Are they willing to take a little bit of their time, put skin in the game? And then I just get very real with people. I'm like, I'd rather under promise and over deliver and almost scare somebody away than,
I 100% agree with that. Like cutting through all of the the pitch of how great everything is and being like, okay, here's the deal. This is what we need. This is where we're headed, but this is where we are right now. And getting super like, okay, can you honestly fit this? And this is why it's important to us as an organization, as even a family, and just laying out all the cards really clearly. And it's helped us to get the right people. We've got a rock star team at this point. And but it's really being completely transparent and exactly like, okay, this is what we expect. This is what is not acceptable. This is where we're headed. Are you on board? Right.
Yeah. And I would say like the first several hires that we made, it was like throwing spaghetti against the wall. It was very hit and mostly miss.
Yeah.
A lot of people that came through that, they seemed okay at the beginning. And then the more we kind of looked into what they were doing and the more accountability measures we implemented in our business, the more we found out what they weren't doing that they were supposed to do. And I think that was like what you mentioned about that, like the 50 page or the 50 questions that you have them fill out, even just seeing if they take the time to fill those out, how carefully, how thoughtful they are in their answers. That says a lot about a person and how they're going to produce in your business. Even just that, using that kind of as a filter, even just getting into an interview. And then also, like you said, with the have some sort of an activity so that you can feel what it's like to work with them. I know for us, like especially when we're hiring for a sales team position, like we always have at least one or two, like mock calls with them where we kind of role play. We give them our script and we let them practice it for a few days, and then we'll actually do like a mock call and see how they respond under pressure and realizing that this is probably the first time they've done the script. They may not have any experience in sales or anything. How do they respond to feedback? And that's the other thing. It's not just how well do they do the script, how well did they respond to the feedback that they get at the end of the call. And that's, once we did that, we, almost every single hire that we've made now is a rock star. So.
Oh, that's so cool. I love to hear that. That's a great strategy. I mean, and coachability, that's what I'm hearing from you, Todd. That is a really big one for the success of a candidate. I outline it as you want to have your mission statement so everybody knows what you guys are working together to do. Like humans need to feel like they're adding value. And then it's breaking down, obviously, the values, what you value, and then the roles, just very clear roles that you need in your organization to get to that mission. And then, Todd, you've kind of touched on this too, is key performance indicators. Being really upfront with what the key performance indicators are and what the path to growth is with you. Because that's another thing I like shout from the rooftops. If you want to remain top performing talent, you have to always have a next step. So that has caused a lot of innovation in my company because I'm like, all right, well, I want to keep growing and I can't do that if we're constantly having, people get to a certain level and then either get bored or go into another industry. More than not, they go into another industry or go start their own side thing or whatever. And I mean, we have non-competes and all that, but you don't want people there that aren't happy. So ultimately, a leader's job is to show people the path and show them that there's something next to strive for so they feel like they're achieving. And that's what I've always seen to be true, no matter what the industry is.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done that with our team members, really shown them, once you hit these key indicators consistently, this is your next step. This is where the next position that's available to you, and so on and so forth. And it gives them skin in the game. Like they buy in, right? They all of what we're talking about here, they buy into the culture of the organization. They buy into the values of the organization. They buy in to the success, right? Because if they're hitting those key indicators, they're pushing themselves to succeed so they can help the organization succeed, take those next steps in those next positions. Something that we implemented I actually got this from, I'm forgetting her name, but it was a Cardone Ventures thing. And it was having them requiring one of the interviews pre-hire, once they get down to your top candidates, giving them your mission, vision, and values, and then having them present that to you.
I love that.
Yeah. And how that's been part of their lives. So going through the core values of the business and giving really vague but specific instructions. I want a 5-minute presentation on the core values. Here you go. And then if they show up and they're talking for 15 minutes, well, there's a problem, right? It's vague, so they could use PowerPoints, they could just talk to it, whatever. But we want to see where they go with that type of instruction. And so, yeah, that's been really helpful as well. And just really putting our core values out in the forefront of the hiring process. So there's no like, well, I didn't know. It's like, yeah, you did. You did a presentation on it. What are some of the key things that you look for? Like when you're assessing someone in the interview process, are there some immediate red flags or some just personality things that you're looking for or looking to avoid?
If we want to go extreme, immediate red flags are going to be complaints, excuses, speaking disparagingly about past positions or people. I think you're going to see a little bit of a difference from a digital versus people that work in a town. A lot of people know each other. So if it's in person, body language matters. You're going to, I am always I want to see the best in people kind of person. So I like to account for, they may be really shy. They may be really intimidated. But what can we do what can they do with our value add? So with our tools, what is possible for them? So I do look at the possibility more than I look at what they're necessarily bringing to the table. So we don't hire for people with clientele. We don't hire for people with an amazing skill set out of the bat. I more look for the coachability and the aligned use, and that they want to go in the same direction and value what we have to offer too, because there's no sense in serving somebody what we have to offer if it's not going to best serve them. And if they don't get excited by, for my specific example, we have a lot of structure, we have a lot of growth opportunity, but there might be somebody who went into this industry because they want freedom, flexibility, and a gypsy lifestyle. And I'm like, we're just not a good fit, even though the hair you do is beautiful. So stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I learned way back when I worked in, after working as a nurse on the floor, I went to healthcare IT and I got into management there. And we had to hire a new team and do all this kind of stuff. And my director and she had much more experience than I did. She was kind of mentoring me. And we made a hire that at the time my gut said no. But I was like, okay, she said, on paper, she sounds great. She answered the questions right. But her energy in the interview was, I just had like a negative vibe from her. It was just like a negative kind of feel. And I was like, okay, well, she knows better. We're going to hire her. The worst hire ever. Horrible. Everything was a problem all the time and really, really bad. So I learned at 24 or whatever, follow my gut, feel their energy. And I'm not a big woo-woo energy person, but you can tell someone's who they are, right? Way beyond what they're saying. You can just kind of read them and the kind of vibe that you're picking up from them. And I'd say definitely trust that even if they're saying the right stuff, if they have the right stuff on their resume or their application, you're picking up something. Our intuition is really smart. Listen to it. Don't do that.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a big fan of it's tangible analytic approach, but I'm huge in gut as well. It's hard to teach that, but I think just do yourself the honor of trusting yourself. So if you hear yourself, it's going to feel and present differently to different people. But if you have a knowing, don't doubt yourself, just go with it, because honestly, there's so many people out there. And if you just work on building the value that you have to offer, I think it's similar to personal relationships. Work on yourself first and work on what you have to offer, and the right people will come.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I really like what you said about you're not necessarily hiring for skill set. You're not necessarily hiring for, the things that they can bring to the table. One of the main things is coachability. And I know for us in our business, some of the earlier hires that we made we're for skill set. We're for like, past performance. Like we've hired top closers and top setters and other companies in our industry, and they came into our business, and we found out that they really didn't have the skills that we thought they should have. And really, they were some of the worst employees because they were kind of stuck in their ways, and they didn't want to adopt our systems. They had their own ways of doing things, and they were making sets, and they were trying to close people that really just were not a good fit for our program, and it really hurt the business. And now some of the absolute best hires that we've made are people who don't necessarily have the skill set for the job, but they're very coachable, and they have the industry. That's the number one thing for us, is that they have some industry knowledge, they can speak the language, and they're coachable. And if they can do that, then we know that we can turn them into a rock star. And it's only a matter of a couple of months before they're hitting their KPIs and they're doing what we need them to do, and we're off to the races.
I love that. And loyalty too, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're already popping around or looking for the next best thing, how are you going to compete with that in the long term? And we want
Right.
longevity.
Yeah. Yeah. And for us too, with our team, we've been really clear on longevity, like where we're headed, where we like, this is a commitment. Like we are not looking for because the bigger kind of you get, where you got a big audience that follows, you kind of build that online, that presence. Some people just want to work with you just to learn from you and then go off and like copy you or do what you're doing. Or there's all kinds of weird stuff. So
I will-
like,
it's so funny because we're in such, different industries, but parallel. Everything we're saying is so parallel. And that's what I love about human nature is like once you
Yeah.
crack that code, it applies. And we all think we're in these little silos of difference, but no, understand humans first. And same thing is stylist. I used to work in a hair school for like a passion thing. And all the students would say, oh, I'm just going to get a job at this nice salon. I'm going to work there for a year, build my clientele, learn, and then go start my own thing. And it's so sad to put that mentality, but it's crazy how it applies to something like what you guys are doing.
Yeah. So building that, right from the get-go, we're looking for, this is like a minimum 2 years, minimum, right? We really would love you if you're here for long-term, if it fits out. But saying all of this stuff up front so that if they're swirling things over, in their head about, well, I'm not going to say it, but I'm really thinking that I'm going to, whatever. And that we can kind of just avoid all of that from the get-go, which has been really helpful as well.
Yeah, and I think another important thing, kind of going back a few things that we said before, was about the core values. Because I remember, like you said, everybody thinks it's fluff, and it's just this weird stuff that like my core value is integrity, and we have a mission statement and all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, every company says that, but I think where the difference is in the details and how you implement it, and how you implement that and how you define that. Because every business is going to say, yeah, we value integrity, but the way you actually implement that and the way that it actually shows in your business is different from business to business. Because I know for us, when we say we value integrity, like one of the things that we'll say is that, okay, so that means that even though we're teaching people how to make money, we're not making income claims. We're not bringing somebody in and they're saying, yeah, I want a skill of 7 figures. We're not going to say, yeah, we can absolutely help you do that, which, I mean, yeah, we can, but we're not making a guarantee that you're going to do it, right? We can guarantee that we can give you the education to do it, but there's a second half of that, right? Which is their commitment and their industry knowledge and the way that they implement and market forces. There's all these other variables that we can't predict, that we can't make a guarantee on. So we're not going to make that promise. Other companies may be perfectly fine saying that, and then just putting it into the fine print that, hey, by the way, there's all these other things that we can't really guarantee it. So if it doesn't happen, it's not our fault, but we're going to say that you can, right? So there's different ways that you implement these, or that you define these, that I think are really important when it comes to values and mission statements and things like that. And so just like you said, it's still important to do, even though you think it's fluffy. But like I said, it's in the details. How do you actually define that, and how does it actually show itself in your business, right?
Yeah. And I mean, what I hear you saying is it's really about the lived core values, not just what you put on a plaque. And that's where I say, like, it means something when it's your North Star, when it's this is the buffer, the boundary of, oh, we start to make a choice, it veers out, oh, it pushes us back in. Like, are we getting out of alignment with those things? So if you're self-aware enough to see if you're living in alignment with words you put on the wall to be core values, or make those core values based off of just genuinely what you're already doing and think about it that way and what you want to see in a person. There is one other resource I'd love to share that you, Todd, you'd mentioned something about like when to hire or like how do you
Yeah.
know when to take the leap? So there's a book that I read in the early days when we were just one location, a couple team members. It was called The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. If anybody ever heard of that? Oh, it's so good. Yes. Okay, cool. So The E-Myth, I've listened to it many times over, referred it to so many people. I think it was one of the single most impactful books to help me see the shift of being a provider to the owner of a business that is working on my business and not in my business. And for different people, your measure of success is going to be different. Like success for me could have meant I just get to continue to do hair and hire out all of the most important other things that are going to make my business grow in the direction I want it to. Or it could be what I'm doing now, where I don't do any hair and I get to travel and I get to speak and I get to teach and, expand into other businesses. Or it could be, XYZ. So defining like what success means to you is crucial first step in understanding who you need to start to bring in to support you. Because just doing like the low-hanging fruit tasks is not the best use necessarily of your potential, especially as a founder or a leader. So you have to first assess that. Like, where do you bring the most value to the business and to your own life? And then start to look at the tasks that you feel the complete opposite about. Like, what do I absolutely hate doing? Is it invoicing? Is it sales? Is it, creating digital content? I don't love social media. I want to hire that out. I want somebody better than me that has passion for it. But you can't just delegate things or even abdicate, they call it, where you're just like, oh, I hate doing bookkeeping. Okay, bookkeeper, I'm hiring you. I'm putting you in charge. I trust you. I'm going to check in twice a year. So once you've mastered those skills and you can very well create a system to consistently achieve the result, then start to assess, okay, I don't enjoy this. I understand what it takes to be successful at this. I can put it on paper. I can write a process and I can hold people accountable for it. I can train, I can track, and I can get feedback. Then you hire for that. And especially last part on that, the cherry on the top is if the value of your time in dollars that you can generate is higher than what you can hire somebody else to do the roles you don't like, then it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think in our industry or in our niche, we would call that trying to outsource our problems, right? Like we've got a problem in our business, so we try to hire somebody to fix the problem. If it's something, like you said, if it's something that you haven't mastered, that you don't know how to track, that you don't know how to, you don't know how to manage somebody to know whether they're doing a good job or not, then that's something you shouldn't be hiring out for yet, right? Mm-hmm. It's something that you need to be the business owner. You need to know how your business is run, how it operates. You can't try to outsource those problems and just hope that somebody else is able to fix it for you.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation, Ryan. We really appreciate you. If people want to check you out, where should they head?
I'm on Instagram a lot. That would be the honest look into my life. I do have Ryann.com, RYANNHALO.com. That should link up everything. And if you're interested in seeing more of the Career Plug hiring platform, I'm actually doing a partnership with them. So feel free to reach out. You can look on Salon-Halo.com, check out their careers page. That's my salon company. If you want to get any tips and tricks and ideas from how we're doing hiring.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.